The security footage was sickeningly clear. Melissa Bell Trevino watched her husband, Ryan Trevino, press a 23-year-old supermodel against the floor-to-ceiling window of his Houston office. His office. The one she had helped him decorate. Her hand, pale and trembling, moved to the tight swell of her belly. 6 months pregnant. Their first child. As she watched Ryan's hands roam Katerina Petrova's body with a practiced familiarity, the room began to spin. This wasn't a mistake. This was a relationship. A betrayal so deep it stole her breath. "Mrs. Trevino, I'm so sorry." Melissa barely heard Marcus, the head of security for Trevino Energy Solutions. He was a good man. She'd gotten his son a summer internship last year. He looked physically ill, standing beside her in the sterile, white security office he'd discreetly pulled her into during her surprise visit. "When?" Her voice was a dry rasp. Marcus couldn't meet her eyes. He stared at the keypad on his desk. "The first instance I have logged was 8 months ago." 8 months. The math was a sledgehammer to the chest. He had started sleeping with Katerina almost immediately after they'd found out she was pregnant. While she was vomiting from morning sickness, he was whispering to another woman. While she was picking out paint colors for the nursery, "Whatever you want, honey, it's all for you." He was buying Katerina jewelry. "He's been using company funds," Marcus continued, his voice low and angry. "Private jets registered as client transport. A condo downtown leased through a shell LLC I've never heard of. It's extensive, Melissa." She closed the laptop. The click was unnaturally loud in the silence. "No one else knows," Marcus said quickly. "I brought this directly to you. What do you want me to do?" "Nothing. You will say nothing to anyone. You will continue to log everything. Send me all of it. The unedited files, the financials, everything. Use the private server I set up for you." Marcus looked confused but nodded. "Of course. But Melissa..." "Ryan." "Thank you, Marcus. Your loyalty is to this company, not to its CEO." She walked out, her back rigid, managing to get to the private elevator before her legs gave out. She leaned against the cool steel wall, one hand braced on her belly, the other over her mouth to stifle the sob that tore from her throat. She looked around the opulent lobby as the elevator descended. The massive, commissioned oil painting of a Texas landscape, the imported Italian marble, the soaring atrium. Ryan was so proud of this building, his monument. But it wasn't his. It was hers. 5 years ago, Trevino Energy Solutions had been 3 months from bankruptcy. Ryan, the brilliant engineer with a devastatingly charming smile, had over-leveraged and was about to lose everything. She remembered him, broken at their kitchen table, admitting he was ruined. She had made one call. She hadn't told him it was her call. She'd told him a friend from business school knew an anonymous investment group in Austin that specialized in high-risk energy buyouts. That group, Belmont Applied Technologies, had swept in, purchased 40% of the company, injected $200 million and saved him. The sole condition, the investors remained silent partners. Ryan had no idea that the BAT fund was wholly owned by her. He had no idea that Melissa Bell, the middle-class Stanford MBA he'd married, was actually Melissa Belmont, the sole heir to the Belmont tech empire, worth a rumored $50 billion. He hadn't just cheated on his pregnant wife. He had been stealing from the woman who owned him. Her phone buzzed. A text from Ryan. "Hey, honey. Tied up in a merger meeting. Gonna be another late one. Don't wait up. Love you. Love you." The words were acid. The room was spinning again. But this time it wasn't from grief. It was from a cold, precise rage that settled deep in her bones, solidifying into something terrifying and new. He thought she was just a supportive, simple wife he could discard. He had made a catastrophic mistake. He had underestimated her. And as she stepped out onto the humid Houston street, Melissa Bell Trevino made a silent promise to the child kicking inside her. Daddy is about to learn what happens when you try to destroy a Belmont. That night was the longest of her life. Melissa walked through their River Oaks mansion, a sprawling 15,000-square-foot testament to Ryan's success. Every piece of art, every silk rug, every custom piece of furniture felt like a prop in a grotesque play. She had let him build this cage for her, and she had willingly locked herself inside. She'd done it for love. Or so she'd told herself. After a lifetime of men who saw her as a walking dollar sign, Ryan had been different. He'd met her at a coffee shop near Stanford, where she was deliberately slumming it, working on a thesis, wearing old jeans and a worn-out alumni sweatshirt. He was a struggling entrepreneur, full of fire and ambition. He hadn't asked about her family, her money, or her connections. He just loved her, or so she'd thought. Now she saw the truth. He hadn't avoided asking about her money. He simply hadn't conceived of her having any. He saw her as smart, supportive, and, most importantly, less than him. An accessory. He came home just after midnight, smelling faintly of Katerina's perfume, a sharp, expensive scent Melissa had clocked in the elevator of the model's agency months ago. "Hey," he whispered, walking into their master bedroom. Melissa kept her breathing even, pretending to be asleep. "You still awake?" He touched her shoulder. His hand felt like a spider. She turned slowly, blinking as if groggy. "Hi. Long meeting?" "The worst." He sat on the edge of the bed, loosening his tie. The sheer, effortless ease of his lie was breathtaking. "This Thompson deal is killing me. But it's going to set us up for life, baby. For you and the little one." He smiled, his handsome face a mask of loving exhaustion. "How are you feeling? How's our girl?" Our girl. He was already spinning the narrative. The perfect father. The devoted husband. "We're fine," Melissa managed, her voice thick with fake sleep. "Just tired. I know. I'm sorry I'm not around more." He leaned in to kiss her forehead, and it took every ounce of her self-control not to recoil. "I promise, Mel, as soon as this deal closes, it's just you and me. I'm taking you to Tuscany. Just the three of us." He was planning a romantic getaway with her while actively planning his life with another woman. The audacity was dizzying. "That sounds nice, Ryan." He went into the bathroom, and the shower hissed to life. Melissa sat up, her heart pounding a sick rhythm against her ribs. She thought of the video file now safely on her encrypted server. The most painful part hadn't been the sex. It had been the moment after. Ryan, beaming, had pulled something from his wallet. The ultrasound photo. Their ultrasound photo. The 3D image of their daughter's face. He had shown it to Katerina. He had let that woman touch it, the two of them laughing, as if sharing a private joke. That was the moment her love for him died. It didn't fade. It was murdered. She sat in the darkness, the shower hissing, and let the cold, hard knot of her new reality settle in her stomach, right above the child he had betrayed. For 3 years, she had played the part of the perfect, supportive wife. She had hidden her intelligence, her ambition, and her fortune, all to make him feel powerful. Now she would continue to play the part. She would be the most loving, supportive, and understanding wife he had ever seen. She would smile, rub his shoulders, and listen to his lies. She would play her role perfectly, right up until the moment she brought his entire world crashing down. The shower stopped. He would be out in a minute, expecting to slide into bed next to her. Melissa laid back down, turned to her side, and placed a hand on her belly. "Mommy's going to handle this, little one." She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 years, the mask she wore felt less like a prison and more like armor. The next morning, Melissa told Ryan she was flying to Austin for a spa weekend with her old college roommate, Rachel. "Oh, honey, that's great," Ryan said, barely looking up from the Wall Street Journal. "You deserve it. You've been so stressed. Take my card." "No, that's okay," Melissa said, pouring herself decaf coffee. "Rachel's treating me. An early baby shower gift. Even better." He smiled, oblivious. "Have fun. I'll miss you." "I'll miss you too," she said, kissing his cheek. The lie tasted like ash. 3 hours later, she wasn't at a spa. She was in a soundproof, glass-walled conference room on the 50th floor of the Belmont Tower in downtown Austin. This was her real home. "Status update," she said, her voice sharp. All traces of the soft, compliant Melissa Trevino gone. Before her sat the executive board of Belmont Applied Technologies, BAT, a $50 billion empire her father had built, and she had quietly taken over 5 years ago. They knew her only as MB, the mysterious, unseen strategist who had tripled their R&D profits. "MB," said her COO, Kenji Tanaka, "the satellite network is fully operational. Division 3 is ready to launch." "Good. Pivot 60% of Division 3's liquid assets into a new acquisition fund. I have a target." "Another one?" "We just acquired the German solar firm." "This one is personal." Melissa's eyes were cold. "I want a full, deep-dive forensic audit on a mid-cap Houston company. Trevino Energy Solutions." A few eyebrows rose. They knew she lived in Houston, but her marriage was a carefully guarded secret. "I own 40% of it through a silent fund," Melissa explained, anticipating their questions. "I believe the CEO, Ryan Trevino, is committing massive corporate fraud and embezzling directly from the company. He's funding a personal lifestyle, including a mistress, using corporate assets." The room grew very still. "You believe?" Kenji asked. Melissa plugged her secure drive into the projector. "I know." She played the highlights. Not the sex. That was for her lawyer. She played the financial data Marcus had pulled. The shell companies, the wire transfers to offshore accounts, the logs of the private jet being used for trips to Miami, Paris, and St. Bart's, all billed as client development. "My God," said her CFO, a woman named Sarah. "He's funneling money directly from the investment fund. He's stealing from us." "Yes," Melissa said, "which means he's not just an adulterer. He's a fool. He's been stealing from a company with the most advanced forensic accounting division on the planet. I want you to find every single penny. I want to know where it went, who he paid, and how he hid it." "And when we find it?" Kenji asked. "You will compile the data into a report for the SEC, but you will not file it. Not yet." "What's the end game, MB?" Melissa stood and walked to the window overlooking the Texas Hill Country. "The silent partnership agreement gives us the right to call in our $200 million loan in full if financial malfeasance is proven. We are going to prove it. We are going to call in the loan. We will bankrupt him." "It would be cleaner to just buy the other 60%, Sarah suggested. "A hostile takeover." "Oh, we'll do that too," Melissa said. "I've been quietly acquiring shares through third-party firms for the last 24 hours. We're already at 48%. But I don't just want his company, Sarah. I want him to have nothing. I want him to understand what he's done." She turned back to her team. "For 5 years, I have hidden my identity. I was tired of men who saw me as a trust fund, not a partner. I wanted to build a life based on something real. I found a man I thought loved me." Her voice cracked, just for a second, but she willed it steady. "I loved him so much. I saved his company. I handed him his dream, and he used that dream to humiliate me, to steal from me, and to jeopardize the future of my child." The room was silent. He sees his wife as a simple, naive woman he can discard. He has no idea who he really married. He has no idea who he's been stealing from. You have 48 hours. I want the entire financial history of Ryan Trevino's life. Then, I'm flying to LA to meet my lawyer." She gathered her files. As she walked to the door, Kenji spoke. "MB, Melissa, this is more than business. Are you prepared for the fallout?" Melissa paused, her hand on the door. "I'm pregnant, Kenji. I'm already living in the fallout. He just doesn't know it yet." Melissa's Gulfstream landed at a private airstrip in Santa Monica. A black sedan, indistinguishable from hundreds in the city, drove her not to a flashy office in Century City, but to a discreet, ivy-covered bungalow in Pasadena. The name on the bronze plaque was simple: E. Vance and Associates. Eleanor Vance was a legend. She didn't advertise. She didn't do TV. She handled the quiet, catastrophic divorces of the global elite. She was 70 years old, wore bespoke Armani suits, and had a mind like a steel trap. She was also Melissa's godmother. "You look pale, child," Eleanor said, kissing her cheek. She gestured to the plush sofa. "Sit. Drink the water. Now, tell me why you've used the emergency code." "He's cheating on me, Eleanor." Eleanor's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose. "Well, that's unfortunate, but hardly a 5-alarm fire. The prenup I drafted for you is ironclad. He gets a one-time payout of $5 million, plus the Houston house, which is in his name. You walk away with your entire Belmont inheritance untouched. It's a clean cut." "That's the problem," Melissa said, her hand shaking as she opened her briefcase. "The prenup won't work." "What?" Eleanor's composure cracked. "Melissa, that document is a fortress. What do you mean it won't work?" It was signed by Melissa Bell, a graduate student with assets listed at under $50,000. It was not signed by Melissa Belmont, CEO of BAT and heir to a $50 billion fortune. "It's fraudulent." Eleanor stared. "You never told him." "Never, not in 7 years." "My God, child, you played a very dangerous game." "I know. I wanted to be loved for me. I wanted a normal life." "There is nothing normal about you, Melissa," Eleanor said, not unkindly. "And there is nothing normal about this. This isn't a divorce. This is the dissolution of a corporate merger that one party didn't know he was in." Melissa laid out the files, the security footage, the financial audit from her team, the offshore accounts, the money trail to Katerina Petrova. Eleanor read in silence for 10 minutes. Her expression went from concerned to grim, and finally to a look of cold, calculating fury. "He didn't just cheat on you, Melissa," she said, her voice dangerously quiet. "He's been embezzling from you. The $200 million investment fund. It was you." "Yes. And the Houston house he thinks he owns? The one I advised you to put in his name to make him feel secure? The mortgage payments, the property taxes, the staff. It's all been paid from a trust I control, routed through the BAT investment fund. He hasn't paid a dime. He thinks company profits covered it. He's been stealing from me to pay for the house he thinks he's going to keep in the divorce." Eleanor Vance actually smiled. It was a terrifying sight. "Oh, Ryan," she whispered. "You arrogant, stupid little man." She stood up and went to her desk. All business. "All right. This changes everything. The prenup is void. We're not filing for divorce." "He is." "What?" "He's planning to leave you, Melissa. This condo, the offshore accounts. This is a nest egg. He's preparing to exit. He's going to ask you for a divorce, thinking he's protected by that prenup. He's going to offer you a pittance to go away quietly, and you are going to let him." The plan formed between them, sharp and brutal. "Phase 1, Eleanor said. "You go home. You play the loving, naive, pregnant wife. You let him spin his lies. You must not, under any circumstances, Let him know that you know. Phase 2, Melissa continued, catching on. He asks for the divorce. I act shocked, heartbroken. I agree to his terms. Phase 3, Eleanor said. The moment he files, we counter. We don't just counter-sue for divorce. We file a RICO suit. We file for corporate fraud. We hit him with the SEC investigation. And BAT formally calls in the $200 million loan. We freeze everything. His personal accounts, his corporate accounts, the shell companies. By the time he realizes what's happening, he won't have enough money left to buy a bus ticket. He'll be ruined, Melissa whispered, the weight of it settling on her. He ruined you the moment he showed another woman your child's ultrasound, Eleanor said fiercely. This is not revenge, Melissa. This is justice. You are a Belmont. You are carrying the next Belmont. You will not be made a fool of. Now go home and remember your lines. You are heartbroken. You are a victim. You are weak. Give him the performance of a lifetime. Melissa returned to Houston and played her part to perfection. For 3 weeks, she was the perfect doting wife. She made his favorite meals. She asked about his stressful work. She cried a little, blaming it on pregnancy hormones, and he'd pat her back, his eyes distant. The emotional toll was immense. She felt like a hollowed-out shell, an actress in a tragedy. She'd sit in the nursery, rocking in the chair they'd picked out together, and silently weep. Not for him, but for the life she'd tried so hard to build. She was losing herself. She needed it to end. Then, one Sunday afternoon, it happened. Ryan asked her to sit down in the formal living room, the one they never used. He had that look on his face, a forced, somber expression she now recognized as his performing face. Here it comes. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Mel, honey, he started, running a hand through his perfectly styled hair. We need to talk. Of course, Ryan. You seem so serious. Is the Thompson deal okay? She injected the perfect amount of wifely concern into her voice. It's not the deal, it's us. He sighed, a deep, theatrical sound. I don't know how to say this. This past year, we've grown apart. We want different things. Melissa let her eyes widen. Grown apart? Ryan, I don't understand. We're having a baby. I know, he said, getting up to pace. This was clearly rehearsed. And I will always be there for our daughter. I'll be a great father. But as a husband, Melissa, I'm just not in love with you anymore. I think we should get a divorce. The words hung in the air. She let the silence stretch, forcing tears to well in her eyes. Divorce? She whispered, letting her voice break. You're leaving me? While I'm pregnant? He flinched. This was the part he'd clearly dreaded. It's better to do this now, before she's born. To get it over with. It'll be cleaner. We can co-parent. It will be amicable. Amicable. Yes. And I want you to know you'll be taken care of. He was in CEO mode now, negotiating. The prenup we signed is very clear, but I want to be generous. The agreement says you get $5 million. I'm prepared to make it $10 million, and you can keep your car. It's more than fair, Mel. It's a clean break. He was offering her $10 million of her own money as a generous goodbye. The insult was so profound, it was almost funny. Is there someone else? She asked, the question hanging like a guillotine. He didn't even blink. He looked her straight in the eye. No, of course not. This is about us. We just don't work. I'm so sorry, Melissa. He had just sealed his own fate. The lie, the casual, confident deception, was the final nail. I need to think, she stammered, standing up and backing away. I can't. I need to go see Rachel. I need to get out of this house. Of course, he said, his face flooded with relief. It was working. She was going to be the sad, crying victim. She was going to roll over. Take all the time you need. My lawyer will draw up the papers. It will all be very simple. Simple, she repeated numbly. She packed an overnight bag, her hands shaking, this time with adrenaline. As she walked out the front door, he put a hand on her arm. Mel, this is for the best, you'll see. She looked up at him, her eyes brimming with tears. You're destroying our family, Ryan. I hope you know what you're doing. I do, he said gently. She got in her car and drove away. As soon as she turned the corner, she wiped the tears from her face. She pulled out her phone and hit a single number on her speed dial. Eleanor, she said, her voice like ice. He did it. He's filing. He lied about the affair. Good. Eleanor's voice was crisp. The trap is set. Now, the fun begins. My team files the countersuit and the SEC report in 1 hour. The BAT board calls in the loan at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Welcome to the war, Melissa. Ryan Trevino felt like a king. The divorce was going smoothly. Melissa was heartbroken, staying with her friend, Rachel, just as he'd predicted. She was weak. It was sad, really. He was in his quarterly board meeting, presenting projections that were, he admitted, creatively optimistic. Katerina was waiting for him at the condo. Life was good. At 10:15 a.m., his secretary interrupted the meeting. Mr. Trevino? I'm sorry, but a courier is here with an emergency legal summons. He says it must be signed for by you, personally, in front of witnesses. The board members shifted. Fine, bring it in, Ryan said, annoyed. A man in a suit entered, placed a box thick with documents on the table, and handed Ryan a single envelope. You've been served, Mr. Trevino. Ryan laughed. My divorce papers? Really? In the middle of a board meeting? He opened the envelope, expecting the simple, amicable filing he'd requested. His smile froze. He read the first page. RICO civil action, corporate fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty. He flipped the page. Plaintiff, Belmont Applied Technologies. What is this? He whispered. Mr. Trevino? One of the board members asked, concerned. Ryan's phone buzzed. It was his CFO. He ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. He looked at the documents, his hand starting to shake. Demand for immediate repayment of $200,000 loan due to gross financial malfeasance. Ryan, said his CFO, bursting into the room, his face sheet white. The feds are here, the SEC. They're freezing our accounts, all of them. They're seizing the servers. What? The boardroom erupted. They're saying you've been running shell companies, stealing. Ryan stared at the box. He opened the lid. On top was a single glossy 8x10 photo. It was a still from the security footage. Him and Katerina. In this very office. Tucked in the corner of the photo was a note, written in elegant, familiar script. You should have known. The house was always mine. MB. MB? MB? He scrambled for his phone. He called Melissa. It went straight to voicemail. He called again. Voicemail. He ran from the boardroom, pushing past the SEC agents in the lobby, and sprinted to his car. He floored it, racing back to the River Oaks mansion. He had to find her. This was a mistake. A nightmare. He used his key. The alarm beeped. He entered his code. Access denied. What the hell? He entered it again. Access denied, code invalid. He slammed his fist against the keypad, then ran to the back, to the patio. The doors were locked. He looked inside. The house was empty. Not just empty of people. The furniture was gone. The art was gone. The rugs were gone. The entire house had been stripped to the studs. All that remained in the cavernous living room was a single, hard-backed chair. Sitting in that chair, silhouetted against the afternoon light, was Melissa. She was no longer the crying, broken wife. She was wearing a sharply tailored black maternity dress. Her hair was pulled back. She looked regal, terrifying, and completely calm. "Melissa! Thank God!" he yelled, rattling the door. "What is going on? Someone is trying to destroy me. They're saying I stole. They froze everything. We have to call the police." Melissa just watched him, her expression unreadable. "Melissa, let me in!" he screamed, his voice cracking with panic. She stood slowly, placed a hand on her pregnant belly, and walked to the glass door. She didn't open it. She just stood there, separated by the reinforced glass. "They aren't destroying you, Ryan," she said, her voice perfectly clear through the door. "I am." Ryan stared at her. "What? What are you talking about? You did this? How? This is a $200 million lawsuit. You don't have—" His voice trailed off as the realization hit him. The note. M.B. Melissa Bell, he whispered, the name feeling foreign in his mouth. "No," she said, her voice amplified slightly by a speaker he'd never noticed. "Melissa Belmont. My father is Edward Belmont. Belmont Applied Technologies." He recoiled from the door as if she'd struck him. "No, that's impossible. Your family. You said they were in Colorado." "They are, in our compound. You never bothered to ask what my father did. You just assumed. You saw what you wanted to see. A simple girl, impressed by your big Houston money. You lied to me," he choked out, his face draining of all color. "Our entire marriage, it's a lie. I withheld information to protect myself." "You committed fraud," she countered, her voice like steel. "The anonymous investment group that saved Trevino Energy 5 years ago. That was me. The $200 million you've been stealing from to buy your mistress condos and jewelry. That was my money. You weren't just cheating on your wife, Ryan. You were embezzling from your primary investor." He sank to his knees on the patio, his mind unable to process the scale of his miscalculation. "The house," he whispered, looking around at the empty shell, "was bought by a Belmont trust. The furniture was leased. The art was on loan from my family's collection. It was all a stage, Ryan, and you were the star performer. But the show is over." "Melissa, please," he begged, pressing his hands to the glass. He was weeping now, ugly, terrified sobs. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I love you. I do. Katerina. She meant nothing. She meant enough for you to show her our daughter's ultrasound," Melissa said, her voice breaking for the first time, not with sadness, but with pure, unadulterated rage. "She meant enough for you to lie to my face, to plan to discard me, to offer me $10 million of my own money to go away quietly. You didn't make a mistake, Ryan. You made a choice. You chose to betray me. You chose to steal." "I'll fix it," he pleaded. "We can fix this. The baby. Think about the baby." "I am only thinking about my child," she shot back. "She will not be raised by a liar and a thief. She will not be raised by a man who thinks so little of women that he would destroy his family for a 23-year-old. You are finished, Ryan." "What? What happens now? Now you leave my property. The SEC has frozen all your accounts, including the offshore ones. The condo you bought for her is now an asset of BAT. Your car is leased by the company. You have, quite literally, nothing but the clothes on your back." "Melissa, no, you can't. I have nowhere to go. That is not my problem. You wanted a divorce. You wanted to be free of me. Congratulations, Ryan. You're free." She turned her back on him and walked away from the door, disappearing into the dark, empty house. He screamed her name, slamming his fists against the glass until they were bloody, but she was gone. He was locked out, A moment later, 2 black SUVs pulled up the driveway. Marcus, her head of security, stepped out. "Mr. Trevino, you are trespassing on private property. You need to come with me." "Marcus, you work for me." "No, sir," Marcus said, his face impassive. "I've always worked for Mrs. Belmont. She's the one who signs the checks." As they escorted a broken, sobbing Ryan Trevino off the property, Melissa watched from an upstairs window. She felt no satisfaction, no joy, just a vast, cold emptiness, and the first, painful kick of premature labor. Justice was served, but the cost was higher than she could have ever imagined. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. The Houston Chronicle and the Wall Street Journal ran simultaneous front-page stories. Houston Energy CEO arrested for fraud. But the real story, the one that broke the internet, was the Forbes cover story that came out a week later. The cover was a striking, powerful portrait of Melissa, 8 months pregnant, standing in the empty atrium of the former Trevino Energy building. The headline, "The 50 Billion Secret, How Melissa Belmont, America's hidden tech titan, took down her cheating husband." The narrative was devastating. It laid out the lies, the secret identity, the betrayal, and the brilliant, ruthless counterattack. Melissa was lauded as a feminist icon, a woman of impossible strength. Katerina Petrova, exposed and humiliated, fled back to Eastern Europe, her career in ruins. Trevino Energy Solutions was dissolved, its viable assets absorbed by BAT. Ryan Trevino, unable to make bail, sat in a county jail cell, a pariah. 3 weeks later, Melissa gave birth to a healthy, 6-pound baby girl. She named her Maya Bell. She held her daughter in the private hospital room, a room filled with flowers from people she barely knew, and felt the first real peace she'd known in months. She had done it. She had protected her child. The sentencing was 6 months later. Ryan, thin and grey, having pled guilty to all charges to avoid a RICO trial, was a shadow of the man he'd been. Melissa, strong and radiant, holding Maya in her arms, declined to give a victim impact statement. Instead, her lawyer, Eleanor Vance, read a simple, 1-page declaration. It didn't speak of betrayal or heartbreak. It spoke of accountability. Mr. Trevino was given every opportunity in life, talent, charm, and the unconditional financial and emotional support of my client. He chose to leverage that support, not to build, but to deceive. He chose to risk his company, his wife's trust, and his child's future for reasons of pure avarice and ego. My client is not here to ask for revenge. She is here to demand that the consequences of those choices be met. The future of her daughter, Maya, depends on the understanding that actions have consequences, and that no one, no matter how powerful, is above the law. The judge, a no-nonsense woman who had seen her share of white-collar criminals, was unmoved by Ryan's tearful, last-minute apology. "Mr. Trevino, you have betrayed every trust a person can hold, corporate, financial, and marital. You did so with a level of arrogance and deceit that this court finds particularly egregious. You are hereby sentenced to 10 years in federal prison." The gavel fell. Ryan collapsed. Melissa stood, adjusted her daughter in her arms, and walked out of the courtroom, head held high, without a single backward glance. She didn't stop for the press. She got into a car, buckled her baby into the carrier, and drove toward her new home in Austin. The war was finally over. 5 years later, the name Melissa Belmont was synonymous with power and resilience. BAT had become a leader in sustainable technology, but Melissa's true passion was her new non-profit, the Phoenix Foundation, an organization dedicated to providing legal and financial aid to women escaping situations of financial abuse and intimate partner fraud. She was 36, a commanding CEO, and a devoted mother to 5-year-old Maya, a whip-smart, curious girl with her father's charming smile and her mother's intense, intelligent eyes. She was also in love. Dr. David Chen was a pediatric oncologist she'd met at a charity gala. He was kind, brilliant, and utterly unintimidated by her power. He saw her, not her bank account. Their relationship was a quiet, mature partnership built on mutual respect. One Tuesday, her lawyer Eleanor called. "He's out, Melissa." Melissa's hand tightened on her office phone. "He's out? He was sentenced to 10. He served 5. Good behavior, overcrowding. He's been a model prisoner, apparently. Got a degree in social work, ran the prison library. He's been released to a halfway house in Austin." "Austin? Why Austin?" "It's his only remaining family tie," Eleanor said gently. "Maya, he's petitioning the court for visitation." A cold dread filled her. She had built a perfect, safe life for her daughter. And now, the ghost was back. She met him in a sterile mediation room. The man who walked in was not Ryan Trevino. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a quiet, haunted humility. He was thin, wore ill-fitting clothes, and his hair was threaded with grey. "Melissa," he said, his voice rough. "Thank you for meeting me. I'm not here for you, Ryan. I'm here for Maya. Why are you doing this?" I don't expect you to believe me," he said, his eyes fixed on the table. "Prison. It burns everything away. All the ego, the ambition. All I had left was the memory of what I destroyed. I'm not that man anymore. I want to know my daughter. I don't want her to grow up thinking her father was only a monster. You were a monster to me, Ryan." "I know," he whispered, and a single tear traced a path down his cheek. "I know. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to atone for it. But she's innocent. Please, don't let my sins be her burden." It was the most honest thing he had ever said to her. The process was slow. It started with letters, then supervised visits in a public park, with Melissa and David watching from a distance. Maya, endlessly curious, was fascinated by this quiet, sad man who looked at her like she was a miracle. Ryan, true to his word, worked a simple job at a non-profit helping other ex-offenders. He never asked Melissa for money. He never overstepped. He just showed up every other Sunday to throw a ball with his daughter and answer her questions. One evening, a year later, Melissa and David were putting Maya to bed. "Mommy," Maya asked sleepily. "Yes, baby. Is it okay if I love 2 dads?" Melissa's breath caught. She looked at David, who smiled, his eyes kind. "Of course, honey," Melissa said, kissing her forehead. "Your heart is big enough. You can love as many people as you want, as long as they are good and kind to you." "Daddy David is my dad," Maya said. "And Daddy Ryan he's my friend, who was lost. But now he's found." Later that night, Melissa and David sat on their porch, looking out at the Austin skyline. "You're an amazing woman, Melissa Belmont," David said, taking her hand. "It was hard," she admitted. "My first instinct was to burn his petition and keep him away forever, to protect her. But you didn't. You chose the harder path. You chose grace. I chose what was best for her. She deserves to know she is loved, even by someone broken." David pulled a small velvet box from his pocket. "Speaking of what's best, I know your first marriage was a battlefield. I'm not offering you a merger or an empire. I'm just offering you a quiet, boring, completely honest life. To be my partner. To be my wife." Melissa looked at the simple, elegant ring, then at the man holding it. A man who had seen her at her most powerful and her most vulnerable. A man who wasn't afraid of her strength, but celebrated it. Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were not for what she had lost. They were for what she had finally, truly found. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes. 1,000 times yes." Melissa built a new life, not from the ashes of her old one, but on the solid foundation of her own strength. Her story became a legend, not of revenge, but of resilience. She proved that the ultimate victory isn't destroying the person who hurt you. It's building a life so full of love, purpose, and joy that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in your own, much greater story. If you were moved by Melissa's journey from betrayal to triumph, please show your support. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their own strength, and subscribe for more stories of incredible resilience.